The wineglass shattered against imported marble, red liquid spreading like blood across a contract worth $40 million. Every head in Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant turned toward table 7, where billionaire Ethan Calloway stood, his ice-blue eyes fixed on the young waitress before him. "You've just destroyed my entire deal," he announced, his voice cold enough to frost the windows. "I want you fired. Now." But Claire Bennett didn't cry, didn't beg. She simply looked up at the security camera above his head and said 5 words that would change everything. "Then let's watch the footage. Want to see what happens when a ruthless billionaire meets the one person who won't break? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels." The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Lumiere, turning Fifth Avenue into a blur of yellow cabs and black umbrellas. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables, where New York's elite paid $500 per person just to be seen. Claire Bennett moved between them like a ghost, her plain black uniform perfectly pressed, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun that made her look older than 30. She'd been working at Lumiere for 3 months. 3 months of aching feet, burns from carrying plates too hot to touch, and tips that barely covered her brother's medication. But she never complained. Complaining was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Claire." Marcus, the floor manager, appeared at her elbow, his face the color of old newspaper. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the restaurant's perfect climate control. "Table 7, just seated." Claire glanced toward the corner booth, the most coveted spot in the entire restaurant. A man sat alone, his charcoal suit probably worth more than her annual salary. Even from across the room, she could feel the coldness radiating from him. The other waiters had mysteriously vanished toward the kitchen. "Is that Ethan Calloway?" Marcus's voice cracked slightly on the name. "He's here early. Reservation wasn't until 8. Claire had heard the stories. Everyone had. The 32-year-old billionaire who'd built Calloway Industries from nothing, who owned half the commercial real estate in Manhattan, who made grown men cry in boardrooms. Last month, a waiter named Jason had served him once and quit the next day. Didn't give notice. Just left his uniform in his locker and disappeared. "Where's Simone?" Claire asked. Simone was their senior server, the one who usually handled VIPs. "Called in sick." Marcus wiped his palms on his slacks. "Food poisoning. Look, Claire, I know you're still relatively new, but I'll take him." Marcus blinked. "You don't have to." "I'll take him," Claire repeated. She needed this job, needed it more than pride, more than fear, more than anything except her brother's life. Tommy's next treatment was in 5 days, and she was still $1,200 short. "It's just another table." "Claire, he's not just another—" Marcus started, but she was already walking away, spine straight, notepad in hand. The closer she got to table 7, the more the temperature seemed to drop. Ethan Calloway didn't look up when she approached. He was reading something on his phone, one hand absently turning a heavy signet ring on his finger. In the soft light, Claire could see he was handsome in the way mountains were handsome, impressive, cold, and completely indifferent to anything human. "Good evening, Mr. Calloway. Welcome to Lumiere. My name is Claire, and I'll be water, no ice, lemon on the side, not in the glass." His voice cut through her greeting like a blade. Still, he didn't look up. Claire wrote it down, her hand steady. "Of course. Would you like to hear about our specials this evening?" "No." "May I bring you something from the bar while you decide?" I said no. Finally, he looked up, and Claire felt the full force of those ice-blue eyes. They were the kind of eyes that missed nothing, forgave less. Is there something unclear about that word? A normal person would have flinched. Claire had been flinching her whole life. From her father's alcoholic rages, from bill collectors, from doctors delivering bad news about Tommy. She'd used up all her flinches years ago. "Not at all, sir. I'll bring your water right away." She turned to go, but his voice stopped her. "The last server who brought me water had the audacity to include ice despite my explicit instructions. Do you know what happened to him?" Claire turned back. Across the restaurant, she could see Marcus watching, probably already drafting her termination notice in his head. "I imagine he doesn't work here anymore." "Correct." Ethan's mouth curved slightly, but it wasn't a smile. Sharks probably made that expression before they bit. "I don't tolerate incompetence. I don't tolerate excuses. I don't tolerate anything less than perfection. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Do you?" He leaned back, studying her like she was a stock report that wasn't adding up. Because you don't look frightened. Should I be? The question surprised him. Claire could tell because his eyes narrowed fractionally, the first crack in his perfect ice sculpture facade. Most people are, he said slowly. I'm not most people. It was out before she could stop it. Too honest, too direct. Marcus would have a heart attack. But something in Ethan Calloway's perfect armor made her want to push back, just a little, to prove she existed. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, water, no ice, lemon on the side. If I find a single ice crystal in that glass, you're fired. Go. Claire went. In the kitchen, chaos reigned. Chef Antoine was screaming at a line cook in rapid French, while servers darted between stations like schools of fish avoiding a predator. Claire found Paolo, the bartender, and gave him her order. Table 7? Paolo's eyes widened. Jesus, Claire, what did you do to piss off Marcus? Nothing. Simone's out. So let Roberto take it. He's been here 6 years. Roberto's nowhere to be found. Paolo started preparing the water with the concentration of a surgeon. Listen, my cousin worked at Calloway's office building, said the man once fired his entire executive team because someone used the wrong font in a presentation. A font, Claire. He's not right in the head. He's just a man ordering water. He's a shark in a suit, Paolo finished, checking the glass 3 times for ice before placing it on Claire's tray, along with a small plate holding a perfect lemon wedge. Don't say I didn't warn you. Claire carried the tray back through the dining room, aware of the eyes following her. The other servers, the manager, even some of the guests. Table 7 had become a spectator sport. She set the water down in front of Ethan Calloway with careful precision. Your water, sir. No ice. Lemon on the side. He didn't acknowledge her. Instead, he lifted the glass to the light, examining it like a jeweler checking for flaws. Then he took a sip. Set it down. Picked up his phone. Have you decided on your dinner? Claire asked. I'll have the Dover sole. Tell Antoine I want it deboned tableside. If there's a single bone left in that fish, I'm sending it back. Claire wrote it down. Would you like to start with an appetizer? No. And he sides with the sole? Antoine knows how I want it prepared. If he doesn't, he's not worth the fortune I'm paying to eat in this overpriced establishment. Claire nodded. I'll put your order in right away. She turned to leave, but again his voice caught her. What's your name? Your real name? Claire Bennett. How long have you worked here, Claire Bennett? 3 months? And before that? It was none of his business. Absolutely none. But something in his tone suggested this wasn't small talk. It was an interview she hadn't applied for. Various restaurants around the city, she said carefully. Fired from most of them, I imagine. Heat flashed through Claire's chest, but she kept her voice level. I left for better opportunities. That's what people say when they're fired. Then I suppose we'll have to agree to disagree, sir. Another crack in the ice. His eyebrow rose fractionally. Interesting. You're either very brave or very stupid. I prefer to think I'm practical, Mr. Calloway. You asked a question. I answered honestly. If you prefer I lie to make you feel better, I can do that too. The words hung in the air between them. Across the room, Marcus looked like he was about to pass out. But Ethan Calloway laughed. It was a short, sharp sound like breaking glass. No one talks to me like that. Maybe they should. My Dover soul, Claire Bennett, before I die of old age. Claire walked away, her heart hammering against her ribs. What was she doing? She needed this job, needed it desperately. And here she was, practically begging to be fired. In the kitchen, she handed the order to the expo station. Antoine saw the table number and his face went pale. Merde. He's back? He wants the sole de bone tableside. Of course he does. Antoine grabbed one of his sous chefs. Michelle, you're doing table 7. I'm not going near that man after last time. What happened last time? Claire asked. Antoine's laugh was bitter. I prepared a perfect bouillabaisse. Perfect. 20 years I've been making bouillabaisse. He took one bite and said it reminded him of cat food. Not that it tasted like cat food, that it reminded him of cat food. What does that even mean? It means he's testing you, Claire said quietly. Testing? Antoine looked at her like she'd grown a second head. For what? I don't know yet. While she waited for the food, Claire checked on her other tables. An anniversary couple celebrating 40 years together. A group of businesswomen closing some kind of deal. A father and daughter, the girl around 7, giggling over her pasta. Normal people, living normal lives. No idea that across the room sat someone who could probably buy and sell everyone in the restaurant and still have change left over. Claire refilled water glasses, brought fresh bread, smiled until her face hurt, all while tracking table 7 from the corner of her eye. Ethan Calloway sat alone in his corner booth, surrounded by empty chairs and walls of his own making. His phone rang 3 times. He ignored it every time. When the Dover sole was ready, Michelle and Claire brought it out together. Michelle carried the Gurdon cart, his hand shaking slightly as he positioned it beside table 7. The fish was perfect. Golden brown, still sizzling slightly, the smell of butter and lemon filling the air. "Your Dover sole, Mr. Calloway," Michelle said, his accent thicker than usual. "I will debone it for you now." "Will you?" Ethan didn't look up from his phone. "How reassuring." Michelle began the process, his knife moving with practiced precision, separating flesh from bone, checking for missed pieces, his movements careful and exact. Claire had seen him do this 100 times. He was an artist. "There," Michelle said finally, stepping back. "Bon appétit?" "Wait." Michelle froze. Ethan Calloway set down his phone. He picked up his fork and knife, cut a small piece of the fish, and lifted it to his mouth. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. "Overcooked." Michelle's face crumpled. "Sir, I assure you, I didn't ask for your assurance. I stated a fact. This fish is overcooked. The texture is wrong. Take it back." "Mr. Calloway, please, if you just... Are you arguing with me?" The temperature in the restaurant dropped 10 degrees. At nearby tables, conversations faltered. Everyone was watching now, not even pretending otherwise. "No, sir, I just..." "Then take it back. Now." Michelle grabbed the plate with shaking hands and fled toward the kitchen. Claire remained, her notepad ready. "Would you like to order something else, Mr. Calloway?" "No, I want the sole, prepared correctly this time." "Of course, I'll make sure..." "You'll make sure?" He looked at her fully now, those ice-blue eyes boring into her. "How exactly will you make sure? Are you going to cook it yourself?" "No, sir, but I'll communicate clearly to the kitchen that..." "The kitchen just demonstrated they can't follow simple instructions. What makes you think clear communication will help?" Claire took a slow breath. "Would you like to speak with the manager?" "I want my dinner. Is that too much to ask in an establishment that charges what you charge?" "Not at all. I'll have it prepared immediately." She turned to go, but his voice followed her. "Claire Bennett." She stopped. "You're taking this remarkably well." "Taking what well, sir?" "My complete dissatisfaction with every aspect of this experience." Claire turned back. "You're unhappy with your meal. That's unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. We'll correct it." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He studied her for a long moment. "You really aren't afraid of me." It wasn't a question, but Claire answered anyway. "Should I be? You're a paying customer with a complaint. I'm a server trying to fix it. This isn't complicated." "Everything is complicated. Only if you make it that way." Another crack, wider this time. For just a second, something flickered across Ethan Calloway's face. Surprise, maybe, or something deeper. Then the ice reformed, colder than before. "Second sole, 15 minutes. If it's not perfect, I'm leaving and making sure everyone in this city knows Lumiere can't cook fish." Claire nodded and headed back to the kitchen, where chaos had fully erupted. Antoine was shouting at Michelle in French. Marcus was on the phone, probably calling in reinforcements. The other servers huddled in the corner like survivors of a natural disaster. "He wants another sole," Claire announced. Antoine threw his towel on the floor. "Of course he does. The first one was perfect. I tasted it myself." "He says it was overcooked." "It was not overcooked. The temperature was exactly..." Antoine stopped himself, breathing hard. Fine, I'll make him another one. But if he sends this back, I'm done. I'll cook for him myself, and when he complains, I'll quit. I swear it." Claire waited while Antoine prepared a second Dover sole with the intensity of a man defusing a bomb. Every movement precise, every seasoning measured to the grain. When it was finished, he stared at it like it was his firstborn child. "This," he said quietly, "is the best Dover sole I have ever made in my entire career." Michelle refused to touch it this time, so Claire wheeled the cart out herself. Table 7 sat in its corner like a throne. and Ethan Calloway, its cold king. Your Dover sole, Mr. Calloway. Chef Antoine prepared it personally. How touching. Claire deboned the fish herself, aware of his eyes tracking every movement. Her hands didn't shake, couldn't afford to. When she finished, she stepped back. Will there be anything else? Ethan cut a piece, lifted it, chewed. This time he nodded. Acceptable. Not good. Not excellent. Acceptable. Claire smiled with her service smile, the one that didn't reach her eyes. I'm glad you're satisfied. I didn't say I was satisfied. I said it was acceptable. My mistake. You make a lot of those? Mistakes? Everyone does. I don't. Claire almost laughed. Almost. But she caught herself because laughing at a billionaire wasn't on her list of smart life choices. Then you're very fortunate, Mr. Calloway. She left him to his acceptable fish and returned to her other tables, where people smiled and said please and thank you like normal humans. The anniversary couple left her a generous tip. The businesswomen ordered dessert. The father and daughter were still laughing. An hour later, Ethan Calloway's plate sat empty. Claire approached with the dessert menu. Would you care to see our dessert selection, Mr. Calloway? No. Coffee? After-dinner drink? Just the check. Claire prepared it, her hands moving automatically through the familiar motions. His bill came to $347 for a single meal. She placed the leather folder on his table. He opened it, glanced at the total, and placed a black credit card inside without looking at the amount. Old money, Claire thought, or so much new money that it had become old through sheer volume. When she returned with the card and receipt, he was standing buttoning his suit jacket. He signed without looking, then paused. You're different from the others, he said. I'm not sure what you mean, sir. Yes, you are. He picked up his phone, his coat. You'll do. I'll do for what? But he was already walking away, moving through the restaurant like a shark through water, leaving whispers in his wake. Claire looked down at the receipt. He'd left a 20% tip. Exactly 20%, calculated to the penny. Not generous, not stingy, perfectly, coldly mathematical. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. When the last table finally left and the other servers emerged from wherever they'd been hiding, Marcus pulled her aside. What did you do? He demanded. My job. Claire, that man, do you understand who he is, what he can do? He's a customer. I brought him food. He ate it. He paid. That's literally the transaction we provide. Marcus shook his head. You don't get it. Ethan Calloway doesn't just eat at restaurants. He tests them. He finds their weaknesses. And then He stopped, looking genuinely frightened. Just be careful, okay? Very careful. But Claire was too tired to be careful. She changed out of her uniform, collected her tips, and walked out into the night rain. Her feet screamed with every step. Her back ached from carrying heavy trays. She smelled like fish and butter and expensive wine. At the bus stop, she counted her money. $217 in tips. Not bad for a Tuesday. Another week like this, and she'd have enough for Tommy's treatment. Her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital. Tommy asking for you, doing okay today. Doctor says numbers improving. Claire closed her eyes against the sudden burn of tears. Okay. That was okay. Better than okay. She didn't think about Ethan Calloway on the bus ride home. Didn't think about his ice blue eyes or the way he'd looked at her like she was a puzzle to solve. He was just another difficult customer in a city full of them. She had no way of knowing that across town, in a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Ethan Calloway sat in the dark and thought about the waitress who hadn't flinched, who'd met his eyes and spoken to him like he was human. It had been so long since anyone had done that. His phone sat on the table beside him, showing a list of tomorrow's appointments. 17 meetings, 4 conference calls, a charity gala he'd promised to attend. All of it felt suddenly, crushingly pointless. On his desk sat a framed photo he never looked at anymore. A younger version of himself, smiling, his arm around a woman who shared his eyes, his sister, Sarah, before the accident, before everything ended. Ethan picked up the photo, studied it in the dim light, then set it face down. Tomorrow, he decided, he would return to Lumiere. Tomorrow, he would see if Claire Bennett was really as unbreakable as she appeared. Tomorrow, he would test her properly. And maybe, though he barely admitted it even to himself, Maybe tomorrow he would feel something other than the crushing weight of loneliness that had become his constant companion. The rain continued to fall on Manhattan, washing the streets clean of the day's accumulated sins. In the darkness, the city slept, unaware that something had shifted, that a billionaire and a waitress had met, circled each other, and found, for just a moment, that neither was quite what they appeared. It was only the beginning. Ethan Calloway returned to Lumiere 3 nights later. Claire saw him the moment he walked through the door, his presence cutting through the restaurant's ambient noise like a knife through silk. Marcus actually dropped the wine bottle he was holding. It shattered against the marble floor, deep red spreading across white stone. "Clean that up," Ethan said without looking at him, already heading toward table 7. This time, Claire didn't wait for assignment. She grabbed her notepad and walked straight to his table, ignoring the panicked look Marcus shot her way. "Good evening, Mr. Calloway. Water, no ice, lemon on the side." He looked up, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she'd remembered. "You're learning." "It's my job to remember." "Most people forget what I tell them 30 seconds after I say it." Claire set down the water glass she'd prepared in advance. "Then maybe you should hire better people." His eyes narrowed. "Careful, Claire Bennett. That almost sounded like advice." "Observation, not advice. You don't strike me as someone who takes advice." "You're right, I don't." He picked up the menu, though Claire suspected he already knew what he wanted. "Tell me, do you enjoy working here?" The question caught her off guard. "It's a job." "That's not what I asked." Claire hesitated. The truth was complicated, tied up with bills and medical debts, and a brother who needed her. But Ethan Calloway didn't care about any of that. "The pay is decent. The hours are long. It's fine." "Fine." He set down the menu. "What a depressing word." "Not everyone gets to love what they do." "No," he agreed quietly. "They don't." Something in his tone made Claire look at him more closely. For just a second, the ice cracked, and she saw something underneath, something tired. Then it was gone. "I'll have the ribeye. Medium rare. If it comes out medium, I'm sending it back." "Understood. Any sides?" "Surprise me." Claire blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You heard me. Choose something. Let's see if you have any taste." It was a test. Obviously a test. Claire wrote down asparagus and roasted potatoes, safe choices that paired well with steak. "I'll put your order in." "Claire." She turned back. "Why did you really take my table that first night? Marcus would have let you refuse." The honest answer was money. Always money. But something made her say, "Because everyone else was afraid of you, and I got tired of watching grown men act like children." Ethan's laugh was sharp and genuine. Brutal honesty. How refreshing. "You did ask." "I did." He leaned back, studying her with those calculating eyes. "Do you know what I do, Claire Bennett? You run Calloway Industries. I destroy things. I find companies that are weak, poorly managed, full of people who've gotten comfortable, and I tear them apart. Sometimes I rebuild them. Sometimes I just sell the pieces." He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. "Does that frighten you?" "Should it?" "Most people think so." Claire met his gaze. "I work in a restaurant where the head chef once threw a pan at someone's head because they overcooked risotto. Your version of scary and mine might be different. Antoine threw a pan. Before my time, but yes, left a dent in the wall by the walk-in." "Interesting." Ethan picked up his water glass, examined it against the light like he had before. "Your ribeye, Claire Bennett. Don't disappoint me." Over the next 2 weeks, Ethan Calloway became a fixture at table 7. He came every other night, always alone, always demanding, always testing. He sent back a perfectly cooked salmon because the plating was uninspired. He complained that the lighting was too bright, then too dim. He questioned the temperature of the room, the wine selection, the thread count of the napkins. But he never complained about Claire. The other servers watched in fascination as she handled each impossible demand with the same calm efficiency. When he criticized the bread for being too warm, she brought him room-temperature bread. When he said his steak knife wasn't sharp enough, she personally selected a new one from the kitchen. When he invented reasons to be dissatisfied, she fixed them without argument. "Why don't you just quit?" Roberto asked one night in the kitchen. The man is clearly unhinged. Claire was loading her tray with appetizers for table 12. "He tips well." "He tips exactly 20%, every single time, like a robot." 20% is 20%. You know what I mean. Roberto lowered his voice. He's obsessed with you, Claire. It's weird. He's not obsessed. He's bored. That's not better. Maybe it wasn't, but Claire had noticed something the others hadn't. Each time Ethan came in, he stayed a little longer, ordered a little more. The ice in his voice had started to thaw by microscopic degrees. Last Tuesday, he'd actually said please when asking for more water. It was progress, even if she wasn't sure what she was progressing toward. On a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after their first meeting, Ethan arrived early again. But this time, he wasn't alone. A little girl walked beside him, maybe 6 years old, with dark curls and a velvet dress that probably cost more than Claire's monthly rent. The restaurant went silent. Marcus appeared at Claire's elbow, his voice barely a whisper. That's his daughter, Emma. No one even knew he had a daughter. Claire watched as Ethan helped Emma into the booth, his movements careful in a way she'd never seen before. When he settled beside her, his entire posture had changed. The sharp edges were still there, but softer somehow. I'll take them, Claire said. Are you sure? If he's difficult when he's alone, I'm sure. She approached the table with 2 menus. Ethan looked up, and for the first time since they'd met, he almost smiled. Claire, this is my daughter, Emma. The little girl looked up with eyes the same ice blue as her father's, but warm where his were cold. Hi. Daddy says you're the only person in this whole restaurant who isn't scared of him. Claire couldn't help it. She laughed. Your daddy might be exaggerating. He never exaggerates. He says exaggeration is for people who can't handle the truth. Emma, Ethan said quietly. What? You did say that last week when Uncle Richard was talking about his golf game. Ethan's jaw tightened fractionally, but he didn't argue. Claire found herself fighting another smile. Well, it's very nice to meet you, Emma. What would you like to drink? Do you have chocolate milk? We do. Can I have it with extra chocolate? Daddy never lets me have extra chocolate at home. Emma, Ethan said again, this time with a warning edge. But Emma just grinned at Claire, a conspirator's grin that made her look less like a billionaire's daughter and more like a regular 6-year-old trying to get away with something. Regular chocolate milk, Claire said diplomatically. And for you, Mr. Calloway? Water, the usual. While she was in the kitchen preparing their drinks, Marcus cornered her by the beverage station. What are they like together? Normal. Well, as normal as he gets. I've worked here 8 years. This is the first time he's brought anyone with him. Marcus looked genuinely shaken. What does it mean? Claire didn't know, but she suspected it meant something. When she returned with the drinks, Emma was chattering about her day at school, while Ethan listened with an intensity that seemed almost painful, like he was memorizing every word. And then Madison said her dad could beat up anyone's dad, but I said my daddy owns half of New York, so he doesn't need to beat anyone up. He can just buy their building and make them move. Emma, we talked about this. I know. Money is private, not for bragging. Emma rolled her eyes in a way that was so perfectly childlike that Claire had to bite back another smile. But she was being mean about Tyler's dad just because he drives a taxi, and that's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. Ethan looked at his daughter, and something in his expression made Claire's chest ache. What did you do? I told Madison that Tyler's dad knows every street in the whole city, and that's like being a superhero, and my daddy just sits in an office all day telling people they're wrong. Claire turned away quickly, pretending to check her notepad, because the laugh that wanted to escape would definitely get her fired. When she turned back, Ethan was looking at her, one eyebrow raised. Something funny, Claire? Not at all, sir. Are you ready to order? Emma wanted chicken fingers and fries, which weren't on the menu but which Antoine prepared anyway after Claire explained the situation. Ethan ordered the duck, then proceeded to quiz Emma on her multiplication tables while they waited for the food. Claire checked on them periodically between her other tables. Each time the scene was slightly different but fundamentally the same. Ethan, rigid and controlled, listening to Emma, wild and free. They were like matter and antimatter, somehow existing in the same space without destroying each other. When the food arrived, Emma declared her chicken fingers the best she'd ever had. Ethan ate his duck in methodical bites, cutting each piece to the exact same size. Daddy, you're being weird again, Emma announced. I'm eating. You're counting, I can tell. I'm not counting. You count everything. It's weird. Ethan set down his fork. Eating in a structured manner is not weird, Emma. It's efficient. It's weird, Emma insisted. Then she turned to Claire, who'd just approached to refill water glasses. Don't you think it's weird when people cut their food all the same size? Claire looked at Ethan, who was watching her with an expression that clearly said, "Choose your next words very carefully." "I think," Claire said slowly, "that everyone has their own way of doing things. And as long as they're not hurting anyone, it's okay to be a little different." Emma considered this. "I guess, but it's still weird." "Emma, finish your dinner." "I am finishing it. See?" She shoved 3 French fries in her mouth at once, chipmunk style. "That's not what I—" Ethan stopped, sighing. "Use your napkin." For the next 20 minutes, Claire watched a billionaire slowly lose a battle of wills with a 6-year-old over proper table manners. Emma won by sheer persistence, negotiating her way into a dessert despite Ethan's insistence that it was a school night. "But Daddy, we never go out to dinner, just you and me. This is special." Ethan's expression did something complicated. "Fine. 1 dessert. You're sharing. Deal." They ordered the chocolate cake, and when it arrived, Emma immediately claimed the entire thing. "I said we'd share. I didn't say when." "Emma Marie Calloway." "What?" "I'm 6. I need my strength." Claire excused herself before she started laughing, but she could hear Ethan's exasperated sigh from halfway across the restaurant. When she returned to clear their plates, Emma had chocolate on her face, and Ethan looked exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with work. "Thank you, Claire," Emma said suddenly. "This was really fun. I'm glad you enjoyed it." "You're nice, nicer than Mrs. Henderson." "Who's Mrs. Henderson?" "My nanny. She's mean. She makes me eat vegetables." "Vegetables are important," Claire said. "That's what Daddy says, but he doesn't eat them either." "Emma, that's enough." But Emma was on a roll now. "He says he'll eat vegetables when I eat vegetables, but then we both just don't eat vegetables and Mrs. Henderson gets mad." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, like a man accepting defeat. "The check, please, Claire." When she brought it back, Emma was yawning, her energy finally depleted. Ethan signed the receipt and stood, helping his daughter into her coat. "Say goodnight, Emma." "Good night, Claire. I hope you're here next time." "I hope so too." Ethan paused at the table, his hand on Emma's shoulder. "She likes you. Emma doesn't like many people. She seems like a good kid. She's the only good thing I've ever done." He said it quietly, almost to himself. Then he seemed to realize what he'd said, and the ice reformed. "Thank you for your service." They left, Emma's small hand in Ethan's large one, and Claire felt something shift in her understanding of the man who'd been testing her for 3 weeks. He wasn't just cruel. He was broken. And break people did cruel things to protect whatever pieces they had left. That weekend, Claire worked a double shift to cover for Roberto, who'd called in sick. Her feet were screaming by hour 6, and her smile had become a grimace she couldn't quite hide. When Ethan walked in at 8 p.m., alone again, she almost groaned. "Good evening, Mr. Calloway." "You look tired." "I'm fine." "That's not what I observed." Claire poured his water with hands that shook slightly from exhaustion. "It's been a long day. I'll be fine." "When does your shift end?" 11. "That's 3 more hours." "I can count, thank you." He raised an eyebrow at her tone. "Careful." "I'm sorry. That was unprofessional." Claire rubbed her temples where a headache was forming. "What can I get you for dinner?" "Why are you working a double?" "Because Roberto is sick and we're short-staffed." "They couldn't find someone else?" "Mr. Calloway, I appreciate your concern, but it's not concern, it's observation. You're exhausted. Exhausted servers make mistakes. I don't like mistakes." "Of course. Not concern. Never concern. Just his obsession with perfection." "I'll try not to spill anything on you," Claire said flatly. "See that you don't." But something in his eyes suggested he was almost amused. "I'll have the salmon, and sit down." "I'm sorry?" "You heard me. Sit." "I can't sit down, I'm working." "You're about to fall down. Sit for 2 minutes while I decide what I want. Consider it a customer request." Claire glanced around the restaurant. It was Saturday night, packed, every table full. Marcus would have an aneurysm if he saw her sitting with a customer, but her legs were screaming, and Ethan was looking at her with something that might have been actual human concern hiding under all that ice. She sat. Better? He asked. This is highly irregular. I'm paying $500 for dinner. I can do what I want. That's not how restaurants work. It's how everything works, Claire. Money buys exceptions. Must be nice. It's not. He said it so quietly she almost missed it. Then louder. Emma asked about you. Did she? She wanted to know if you were real or if I made you up. Claire blinked. Why would she think you made me up? Because apparently I never talk about real people. Only work. She was suspicious that I'd mentioned you 3 times. 3 whole times. I'm honored. You should be. I don't talk about anyone. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the restaurant hummed with life, laughter, conversation, the clink of silverware against china. Normal life, happening all around them while they existed in this strange bubble of honesty. Why do you come here? Claire asked suddenly. Really? Not the food, not the atmosphere. Why? Ethan was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, because everyone here is terrified of me except you, and I'm trying to figure out why. Maybe I'm just stupid. You're not stupid. He leaned back. Stubborn, maybe. Reckless, definitely, but not stupid. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. Smart people know when to be afraid. Then I guess I'm not as smart as you think. No, he said slowly. I think you're smarter than I thought. You're just afraid of different things. The observation cut too close to truth. Claire stood abruptly. Your salmon, Mr. Calloway. I'll put it in right away. Claire. She stopped but didn't turn around. Take care of yourself. I have high standards. I can't have you collapsing mid-service. It should have been insulting. Probably was meant to be. But Claire heard what he wasn't saying. I care if you're okay, but I don't know how to say it without making it about me. I'll do my best, sir. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of exhaustion and automatic movements. Ethan ate his salmon without complaint, left his 20% tip, and disappeared into the night. Claire made it to 11 p.m. through sheer willpower, changed out of her uniform with numb fingers, and stumbled to the bus stop. Her phone buzzed. Tommy. Late shift? Double. Home soon. You take your meds? Yes, Mom. I'm your sister, not your mom. You act like my mom. How much longer are you going to work yourself to death? Claire stared at the text, too tired to formulate a response that wasn't completely honest. The truth was, she didn't know. Until Tommy was better. Until the bills were paid. Until the universe decided she'd suffered enough and gave her a break. Not dying. Just tired. Love you. Love you too. Be safe. The bus was late. Claire sat on the bench, her feet throbbing, her back aching, her head pounding. She closed her eyes and tried to remember why she was doing this. The reason was always Tommy, but sometimes the why got lost in the exhaustion. Claire Bennett. Her eyes snapped open. Ethan Calloway stood in front of her, still in his suit, his hands in his pockets. Mr. Calloway, what are you... You take the bus home? Yes? At 11 p.m.? Alone? It's New York. Everyone takes the bus. I don't. Of course you don't. Claire was too tired for this conversation. Did you need something? Forget to complain about dessert? He ignored that. Where do you live? That's really none of your business. If you collapse on your way home because you worked yourself unconscious, it becomes my business. I don't need that kind of guilt. How noble of you. I'm not noble. I'm practical. He pulled out his phone. My driver is 2 blocks away. He'll take you home. I'm not getting in a car with a stranger. Harrison has worked for me for 12 years. He's not a stranger. He's a stranger to me. Ethan made a frustrated sound. Fine. I'll ride with you. Then he's not a stranger. He's a driver with a passenger. You're going to ride across town in a car with your employee just to make sure I get home safely? Yes. Why? The question seemed to surprise him. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, Because Emma would be disappointed if something happened to you. It was a lie. They both knew it was a lie. But Claire was too tired to argue, and the thought of a warm car instead of a cold bus was too tempting. Fine, but only because I'm exhausted. I'm aware. A black Mercedes pulled up 30 seconds later. The driver, Harrison, was in his 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that suggested he'd seen everything and judged nothing. He opened the back door without comment. Claire slid in, and Ethan followed, maintaining a careful distance between them on the leather seat. "Address?" Harrison asked. Claire gave it. An apartment building in Queens, nowhere near the luxury Ethan probably inhabited. Harrison nodded and pulled into traffic. They rode in silence for several blocks. The city scrolled past outside, all lights and movement and life. Inside the car, everything felt suspended, separate. "You don't have to do this," Claire said finally. "I'm aware." "So why are you?" Ethan looked at her, really looked, and for the first time since they'd met, the ice was completely gone. "Because I've been testing you for 3 weeks, and you haven't failed once, and I'm trying to understand how that's possible. Maybe your tests aren't as hard as you think. They are, trust me. Then maybe I'm just good at my job." "It's more than that." He turned to look out the window. "You remind me of someone." Claire waited, but he didn't elaborate. The car crossed the Queensboro Bridge, the East River dark and glittering below. "Your sister," Claire said quietly. Ethan's head snapped toward her. "How did you—" "Emma mentioned her, said you keep a picture on your desk." "Emma talks too much. She's 6. It's what they do." Another silence, longer this time. Then, so quietly Claire almost missed it. "Sarah was like you. Stubborn, fearless, believed the best in people even when they didn't deserve it." Was, past tense. "What happened to her?" "Nothing I want to talk about." The ice was reforming, walls going back up. "This is your building?" They'd stopped in front of Claire's apartment, a pre-war walk-up that had seen better decades. Harrison had the door open before Claire could reach for the handle. "Thank you for the ride," she said. "Claire." She turned back. Ethan's face was shadowed in the car's interior, but his eyes caught the streetlight. "You're not afraid of me because you've already faced worse, haven't you?" It wasn't really a question. Claire thought about her father's rages, about holding Tommy's hand while doctors delivered bad news, about bills she couldn't pay and futures she couldn't promise. "Good night, Mr. Calloway." "Ethan," he said. "When we're not in the restaurant, call me Ethan." "We're never not in the restaurant." "We are now." Claire shook her head, smiling despite herself. "Good night, Ethan." She walked into her building without looking back, but she felt his eyes on her until the door closed. Upstairs, Tommy was still awake, playing video games on the ancient TV they'd bought at a thrift store. "You look dead," he observed. "Thanks. Love you too." "Who was that in the car?" Claire froze. "What car?" "The Mercedes. I saw from the window. Very fancy. You moonlighting as a chauffeur?" "Just a customer being nice." "That was a $200,000 car, Claire. That's not just nice. That's suspicious." "It's nothing. Go to bed." But Tommy was 17 and sharp as broken glass. "Does this have anything to do with why you keep working doubles? You in some kind of trouble?" "No, I'm fine. We're fine." "We're not fine. Your feet are bleeding." Claire looked down. He was right. Her shoes had rubbed blisters that had opened hours ago. She hadn't even noticed. "It's just part of the job." "The job is killing you. The job is keeping you alive." The words hung between them, too honest, too raw. Tommy's face crumpled. "I hate that you have to do this for me." Claire crossed to him, wrapped him in a hug despite the fact that he was taller than her now. "I'd do anything for you. You know that." "I know, but I still hate it. Hate it tomorrow. Right now, sleep." After Tommy went to bed, Claire soaked her feet and counted her tips. $312. Good night. Another week of good nights, and she'd have enough. She thought about Ethan sitting in the dark in his Mercedes, asking questions he had no right to ask, seeing things she tried to hide. He was dangerous, not because he was cruel, but because he was starting to be kind. And Claire couldn't afford kindness. Kindness made you hope, and hope was expensive. Across town, Ethan sat in his penthouse and stared at the photo of Sarah he'd turned face up again. She smiled at him from frozen time, forever 28, forever bright. "She's like you," he told the photograph. "Stubborn, fearless, probably going to get herself killed with that combination." Sarah didn't answer, because Sarah had been silent for 5 years. Ethan poured himself 2 fingers of scotch and didn't drink it. Instead, he pulled up the file his investigator had compiled on Claire Bennett. He'd ordered it 2 weeks ago, unable to resist the urge to understand her. Single mother? No, wait, single sister, raising a younger brother. Medical bills, student loans, 3 previous restaurant jobs, left each for better opportunities, which really meant higher pay. Clean record, no scandals. Nothing interesting except the fact that she worked herself half to death and never complained. She was exactly what she appeared to be, a good person in a bad situation doing her best. Ethan hated it. He hated that people like Claire existed, people who tried and failed and kept trying anyway, people who believed that working hard mattered, that being good mattered, that the universe eventually rewarded the deserving, because he knew the truth. The universe didn't care. Good people suffered. Bad people won. And the only thing that mattered was power. But looking at Claire's file, at the determined set of her jaw and the ID photo from her previous job, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt wrong. The wrongness festered in Ethan's chest for 3 days before he acted on it. On Wednesday evening, he arrived at Lumiere with a leather portfolio and a look on his face that made even the hostess step back. Claire was already mid-shift, carrying a tray of appetizers to table 4 when she saw him. Something in his posture set off alarm bells in her head. This wasn't a test. This was something else. "Mr. Calloway," she said when she approached his table. "Your usual water?" "No." He set the portfolio on the table with deliberate care. "Tonight is different." "Different how?" "You'll see. I'll have the lobster bisque to start, then the filet mignon, rare. And bring me your wine list." Claire wrote it down, her pen moving automatically while her brain tried to decode the shift in atmosphere. Ethan's eyes had that calculating gleam she'd seen before, but sharper now, hungrier. When she brought the wine list, he barely glanced at it. "The Chateau Margaux, 2015. That's $800 a bottle, sir." "I'm aware of what I'm spending, Claire. Bring it." She did, watching as the sommelier performed the opening ritual with shaking hands. Ethan tasted it, nodded, and dismissed the man with a wave. Then he poured a second glass and set it across from him. "Sit." "I can't." "You can. I'm requesting your presence. Marcus won't object if I'm requesting it." Claire glanced toward the manager, who looked like he was having a small stroke, but nodded frantically. She sat, feeling exposed, wrong, like an actor who'd walked onto the wrong stage. "I don't drink on shift." "You do tonight." Ethan pushed the glass toward her. "Humor me." "Why?" "Because I'm about to make you an offer, and I want you relaxed when you hear it." Every instinct Claire had screamed danger. What kind of offer? The kind that changes lives. He sipped his wine, watching her over the rim. "I've been observing you for over a month now, Claire. Testing you, pushing you, trying to find your breaking point. I noticed. You never broke, not once. Do you know how rare that is?" "I don't break easy." "No, you don't." He set down his glass. "I need someone like that. Someone I can trust, absolutely. Someone who won't lie to me, won't steal from me, won't sell me out the moment a better offer comes along." Claire's heart started pounding. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about a job, Claire, a real job. Not serving overpriced fish to people who don't appreciate it. A position in my organization. Executive assistant, 6-figure salary, full benefits. Everything you need to take care of your brother properly." The words hit like a physical blow. Claire actually felt dizzy. "You can't be serious." "I'm always serious. You don't even know me. I know you better than you think." He opened the portfolio, revealing printouts. Claire's breath caught. Medical bills. Tommy's treatment schedule. Her student loan statements. Her entire financial life laid bare on expensive restaurant linen. "You investigated me," she said flatly. "Of course I did. I investigate everyone." "That's..." Claire couldn't find words big enough for her anger. "That's a complete violation of privacy. It's due diligence. It's psychotic. It's business." Ethan closed the portfolio. "And business is what I'm offering you, a chance to stop drowning, a chance to actually help your brother instead of just delaying the inevitable." Claire stood abruptly, her chair scraping against marble. Around them, conversations faltered. People were staring. "I need to get back to work." "Claire, no. Whatever this is, whatever game you're playing, no." She walked away before he could respond, her hand shaking so badly she had to set down her notepad. In the kitchen, she pressed her palms against the cold steel counter and tried to breathe. Marcus appeared beside her. "What happened? What did he say?" "Nothing. It's fine." "It's clearly not fine. You look like you've seen a ghost." "I said it's fine, Marcus." Claire pushed away from the counter. "I need to check on my tables." For the next hour, she avoided table 7 entirely. Let one of the other servers bring his bisque, his steak, his vegetables that he'd probably send back out of spite. Claire couldn't look at him without feeling violated, exposed, seen in ways she'd never agreed to. But Ethan didn't leave. He sat in his corner booth, eating methodically, occasionally checking his phone, waiting. At 9 p.m., the dinner rush finally started to ease. Claire was clearing table 12 when Marcus appeared again, looking apologetic. "He's asking for you specifically." "Tell him I'm busy." "Claire, he's already been sitting there for 2 hours. If you don't go, he's going to complain to management, and—" "Fine, fine." She approached table 7 like a prisoner approaching the gallows. Ethan looked up from his phone, his expression unreadable. "Your shift ends at 10, he said. "Is that a question or another invasion of my privacy?" "Neither. It's a statement of fact." He pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card, and set it on the table. "My offer stands. 6 figures, full benefits, a chance to stop living paycheck to paycheck and actually build a future." "I don't want your job." "Why not?" "Because nothing is free, especially not from men like you." Something flickered across his face. Anger, maybe, or hurt. Men like me. Billionaires who play games with people's lives, who investigate their employees like criminals, who think money solves everything. Money does solve most things, Claire. Your brother's medical bills, for instance. It was a low blow, and they both knew it. Claire felt her composure crack for the first time in weeks. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't use Tommy against me." "I'm not using him against you. I'm offering you a way to actually help him." "By doing what? Being your assistant? Running your errands? Pretending to respect you while you treat everyone around you like garbage?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Is that what you think I want?" "I don't know what you want, and frankly, I don't care." She turned to leave again, but this time he stood, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "I want someone honest." Claire froze. "I want someone who'll tell me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who won't yes-man me to death or smile while planning to stab me in the back. I want someone I can trust, Claire, and trust is a commodity I can't buy no matter how many billions I have." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every eye was on them. "You barely know me," Claire said without turning around. "I know enough. I know you work doubles when you can barely stand. I know you take the bus home alone at 11 p.m. because you can't afford a car. I know you've been raising your brother since you were 23 because your parents weren't worth the air they breathed. I know you're drowning, Claire, and I'm offering you a life raft." She turned slowly. "And what do you get out of it?" "Someone I can trust. Someone who's already proven they can handle pressure without breaking." "Is that what these past weeks were? A job interview?" "Yes." The honesty of it was almost worse than the manipulation. Claire stared at him, this man in his expensive suit with his expensive wine and his complete lack of understanding about how normal people lived. "I don't trust you," she said. "I know, but you will. You're incredibly arrogant. I'm realistic. You need what I'm offering, and I need what you have." He picked up the business card, held it out. "Think about it. You have until Friday. And if I say no, then I'll stop coming here, and you'll keep working yourself to death for tips that barely cover rent. Your choice." Claire took the card, not because she wanted to, but because refusing felt like giving him more power than accepting. This conversation is over. For now. She walked away, tucking the card into her apron pocket, where it burned like a hot coal against her hip. The rest of her shift passed in a haze. She brought food, cleared plates, smiled at customers who had no idea their waitress had just been offered an escape hatch from her entire life. When 10 o'clock finally came, she changed out of her uniform with mechanical movements and stepped into the alley behind the restaurant. The rain had started again, cold and relentless. Claire stood under the small awning, watching water cascade off the edge, trying to process what had just happened. "You're thinking about it." She didn't jump. Part of her had expected Ethan to follow. Go away. In a minute. He stood beside her, far enough away to be respectful, but close enough that she could feel his presence. I meant what I said in there. Which part? The part where you admitted to stalking me, or the part where you tried to buy me? I didn't stalk you. I did research. Same thing. It's not. He was quiet for a moment. Sarah used to say the same thing, that I couldn't tell the difference between caring and controlling. There it was again. Sarah. The ghost that haunted every interaction. Tell me about her, Claire said. No. Why not? Because it's not your business. You made my entire life your business. I think that earns me one answer. Ethan was silent so long that Claire thought he might actually leave. Then, she died 5 years ago. Car accident. The other driver was drunk, ran a red light, T-boned her on the passenger side. She was dead before the ambulance arrived. The words were flat, emotionless, but Claire heard what lived beneath them. A grief so massive it had turned to stone. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. No, but it's still true. Another silence. The rain drummed against the awning, filling the space between them with white noise. She would have liked you, Ethan said finally. Sarah. She would have said you were too stubborn for your own good and then invited you over for dinner anyway. She sounds like she was kind. She was better than me in every way. He looked at Claire directly. I'm not a good man, Claire. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but I'm a fair one. Work for me, and I'll pay you what you're worth. I'll protect you. I'll make sure your brother gets the best care money can buy. And what do I have to do in return? Your job. Nothing more, nothing less. It sounded simple. It sounded too simple. I need time to think. You have until Friday. After that, the offer expires. Why Friday? Because I'm impatient, and because you'll talk yourself out of it if I give you too long. He pulled out his phone. Harrison will drive you home. I can take the bus. You could, but you won't. The Mercedes pulled up 30 seconds later like it had been waiting. Probably had been. Ethan opened the door himself this time, a strange gesture that felt almost chivalrous. Claire got in because her feet hurt and because arguing felt pointless. Ethan didn't join her this time. He closed the door and stood in the rain, watching as Harrison pulled away from the curb. Through the rear window, Claire saw him standing there, getting soaked, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. At home, Tommy was waiting up again despite it being a school night. The fancy car is back, he observed. I know. You gonna tell me what's going on? Claire pulled out Ethan's business card, stared at it like it might explode. I got a job offer. Tommy's eyes widened. From Car Guy? From Car Guy. Doing what? Executive assistant, 6-figure salary, full benefits. Holy... Tommy stopped himself. That's amazing. Why do you look like someone died? Because there's no such thing as a free lunch, Tommy. And this guy, he's complicated. Complicated how? Complicated like he investigated my entire life without asking. Complicated like he's testing me for something I don't understand. Complicated like taking this job might be the smartest or stupidest thing I've ever done, and I can't tell which. Tommy studied her face. But you're thinking about it. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Because of me. Because of the medical bills. Because of us. Because I'm tired, Tommy. I'm so tired of barely making it. So take the job. It's not that simple. Why not? Claire couldn't articulate why. Something about Ethan Calloway set off every warning bell in her head, even as something else recognized a kindred spirit. Someone damaged, someone dangerous, someone worth understanding. I have until Friday to decide, she said. Wednesday night, Claire didn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running the numbers. With Ethan's salary, she could pay off Tommy's medical bills in 6 months, could move them out of this apartment into something with heat that actually worked, could stop choosing between groceries and medication. But what was the real cost? Thursday morning, she called in sick to Lumiere for the first time ever. Marcus sounded shocked. Are you actually sick, or is this about Calloway? Does it matter? Claire, whatever he said to you. I'm fine, Marcus. I just need a day. She spent the day at the hospital with Tommy, sitting through his treatment, holding his hand while chemicals dripped into his veins and made him pale and nauseous. The bills for this single session would set her back another $1,000 she didn't have. "You should take that job," Tommy said between waves of nausea. "You don't even know what it is." "I know it's better than this. Better than watching you kill yourself to keep me alive. You're worth it." "Maybe, but you shouldn't have to choose." That evening, Claire walked to Central Park and sat on a bench, watching people jog past in their expensive athletic wear, walking dogs that probably cost more than her monthly rent. This was Ethan's world. Money and power and the complete certainty that everything could be bought if you just named the right price. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Tomorrow's Friday. I need your answer by noon. Ethan." Of course he had her number, probably had her social security number too, her blood type, her goddamn horoscope. Claire typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, "How did you get this number?" The reply came immediately. "I have my ways, that's not comforting. It's not meant to be, it's meant to be honest." She stared at the words, then typed, "Why me? Really?" This time the response took longer. "Because you looked me in the eye and didn't flinch. Because you're stronger than you know. Because I need someone who won't break. Everyone breaks eventually. Not you. I've been trying for a month. You're still standing." Claire closed her eyes. "That's not strength. That's stubbornness. Same thing. It's not." "Tell me your answer tomorrow, Claire. Noon. My office. Address below." He sent a location in Midtown, some glass tower that probably had his name on it. Claire looked at it and felt her stomach twist. This was insane. Taking a job from a man who'd spent a month psychologically torturing her in a restaurant just to see if she'd crack. A man who invaded her privacy and threw money at problems and clearly had more issues than any therapist could unpack. But the alternative was what? Another 5 years of doubles? Of watching Tommy get sicker? Of choosing between food and medication? She went home and made a list. Pros and cons like a rational adult. The cons were longer, but the pros all screamed in capital letters. Money, insurance, stability, Tommy. At midnight, she was still staring at the list when her phone rang. "Ethan." "It's midnight," she answered. "I'm aware. Can't sleep?" "Can you?" "Never." He sounded tired, the ice in his voice thawed to water. "What are you thinking?" "That you're crazy. That I'm crazy for even considering this." "Probably true on both counts." A pause. "Emma asked about you again today." "What did you tell her?" "That you were thinking about coming to work with me." She was excited, said maybe you could teach me to be nicer. Despite everything, Claire smiled. "That's a tall order." "She has faith in you." Another pause, longer. "So do I." "You don't even know me." "I know you're the first person in 5 years to tell me the truth, even when it hurts. I know you're loyal to the point of self-destruction. I know you're exactly what I need, Claire, even if you don't see it yet." "What if I'm not? What if I take this job and disappoint you?" "You won't. You can't know that." "Yes, I can, because disappointing people requires not caring, and you care too much about everything." It was too accurate, too honest. Claire felt exposed all over again. "I need to go." "Friday, noon, please." The please did it. The crack in his armor, the admission of need. "I'll think about it." "That's all I ask." He hung up, and Claire sat in the dark, her phone growing cold in her hand. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. Claire dressed in the only professional outfit she owned, a black blazer she'd bought secondhand and pants that were starting to fray at the hem. In the mirror, she looked like what she was, someone pretending to belong in a world she'd never been invited to. The Calloway Industries building was everything she expected. Glass and steel and the kind of aggressive modernity that screamed money. The lobby had marble floors and a ceiling that went up forever, and security guards who looked at Claire like she might be lost. "I'm here to see Ethan Calloway," she told the desk. The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes, Claire Bennett, noon." Something shifted in the woman's expression. She picked up her phone, spoke quietly, then nodded. "Top floor. Elevator's on your right." The elevator ride took forever. Claire watched the numbers climb, 30, 40, 50, and felt her stomach sink with each floor. What was she doing? This was insane. The doors opened onto another reception area, this one even more intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Manhattan. A woman in her 40s sat behind a desk that probably cost more than Claire's car would have if she'd had a car. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Calloway is expecting you." She stood, all efficiency and pressed suits. "Follow me." They walked down a hallway lined with abstract art that Claire didn't understand and probably wasn't meant to. Every door they passed was closed, the offices behind them silent and secretive. At the end of the hall, the woman knocked once and opened the door without waiting for a response. Ethan's office was huge, corner view, leather furniture, a desk the size of a boat. He stood by the window, his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what he thinks he's worth. Make the offer. If he refuses, move to the next candidate." He paused. "No second chances. I'm done with people who can't make decisions." He hung up and turned, and for a second Claire saw surprise on his face, like he hadn't actually expected her to show. "Claire, you came. I said I'd think about it." And she took a breath, felt the weight of the decision settle onto her shoulders like a physical thing. Thought about Tommy in that hospital bed. Thought about her bleeding feet and her empty bank account and the crushing knowledge that she was one emergency away from complete disaster. "I want it in writing," she said. "Contract, salary, benefits, everything you promised. And I want a clause that says you can't fire me without cause." Ethan's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "Done. And I want to know exactly what I'm getting into. No more games, no more tests. Fair. And if I find out you've lied to me about any part of this, I walk. No notice, no explanation." "Agreed." He walked to his desk, pulled out a file folder, and handed it to her. "Contract. Drafted this morning. Read it. Take it to a lawyer if you want. I'll wait." Claire opened the folder. 20 pages of dense legal text, but the important parts jumped out. 120,000 annual salary, full health insurance, 4 weeks vacation, termination only with documented cause. It was real. All of it was real. "Why me?" she asked again. "Really?" No more deflections. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a photograph. He handed it to Claire. A woman with Ethan's eyes smiling at the camera, younger, brighter, alive. "Sarah," Claire said. "Sarah." He took the photo back, looked at it like it hurt. 5 years ago, my business partner, Marcus Hendricks, got drunk and decided to drive home anyway. He ran a red light at 60 miles an hour and killed my sister instantly. Claire's breath caught. Marcus walked away with a broken arm. No jail time. His lawyers argued it was an accident, that he had no history of drunk driving, that prison would ruin a promising career. The judge agreed. 6 months probation, community service, a slap on the wrist for ending a life. "That's horrible. It destroyed me," Ethan said simply. "Sarah was the only person in my life who told me the truth, who saw past the money and the power and actually cared about who I was underneath. When she died, I realized I'd surrounded myself with liars and yes-men, people who smiled while planning to betray me." "So you became this," Claire said quietly. "Cold, testing, pushing everyone away before they could leave. Something like that." He set the photo down. "And then you walked up to my table with water and refused to flinch. You told me the truth even when it was inconvenient. You didn't want anything from me except to do your job and go home. I still don't want anything from you. I know. That's why I'm offering it anyway." He gestured to the contract. "I need someone I can trust, Claire. Someone who won't lie even when the truth is uncomfortable. Someone who's already proven they can handle pressure. That's you." Claire looked at the contract, then at Ethan, then back at the contract. It was the answer to every problem she had. And all it would cost was working for a man who collected broken people like other people collected art. "I need one more thing," she said. "Name it." "I want you to tell me the whole truth about Marcus Hendricks, what happened after the trial, why you really started testing people." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not relevant to the job." "It is to me. You want trust? It goes both ways." For a moment, she thought he might refuse, might tell her to take the job or leave it, no conditions. But then he sighed and the ice cracked wide open. "After the trial, I started investigating Marcus, looking into his business practices, his finances, his personal life. I found irregularities, lots of them. He'd been embezzling from our partnership for years, hiding it in shell companies and offshore accounts. The drunk driving wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. Did you turn him in? I destroyed him. No regret in his voice, just fact. I took everything I found and buried him with it. He's in prison now, serving 15 years for fraud. Not for killing Sarah, never for that, but at least he's somewhere he can't hurt anyone else. And everyone around you became a suspect, Claire said, understanding now. Everyone became a potential Marcus, someone smiling while plotting to betray me. I started testing people, pushing them, trying to find who would crack and who would stand firm. That's a sad way to live. It's a safe way to live. They're not the same thing. No, Ethan agreed. They're not. Claire looked at the contract again. This job wasn't just about answering phones and scheduling meetings. It was about being trusted by a man who trusted no one, about standing next to someone who'd weaponized his grief and turned it into armor. It was impossible. It was insane. It was exactly what Tommy needed. I'll take the job, Claire said, but not because of the money. No? Because I think maybe you need someone to tell you the truth more than I need the paycheck. And because Emma deserves a father who isn't testing everyone for betrayal. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Not a smile, but close. When can you start? 2 weeks. I need to give Lumiere notice. Quit today. I'll pay you for the 2 weeks anyway. No, I do this right, or I don't do it at all. Stubborn. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing. It's not. He held out his hand. Welcome to Calloway Industries, Claire Bennett. She shook it, his grip firm and warm and more human than she'd expected. As she left the building, contract tucked under her arm, Claire felt the weight of the decision settle into her bones. She just agreed to work for a man who'd spent a month breaking her down to see what she was made of. A man haunted by his sister's death and his partner's betrayal. A man who tested everyone because trusting anyone felt impossible. But she'd also seen the cracks in his armor. The way he looked at Emma. The way his voice softened when he talked about Sarah. The way he'd stood in the rain, watching Claire's car drive away, looking lost. Maybe this job was about more than money. Maybe it was about two broken people finding someone who understood what it meant to keep standing when everything else had fallen apart. Claire pulled out her phone and texted Tommy. Got the job. Everything changes now. His response came immediately. About damn time. She smiled, tucked her phone away, and walked into her new future with her eyes wide open and her guard still up. Because Claire Bennett was stubborn and fearless and strong, but she wasn't stupid, and something about Ethan Calloway's offer felt less like a job and more like a test she hadn't finished taking yet. Claire's first week at Calloway Industries felt like being thrown into deep water while everyone watched to see if she'd swim or drown. Her desk sat directly outside Ethan's office, a strategic position that meant she saw everyone who came and went. Executives in $1,000 suits who looked at her like she was furniture. Lawyers carrying briefcases full of documents she couldn't begin to understand. Women in designer heels who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes. "You must be the new assistant," one of them said on Claire's second day. She was blonde, perfectly polished, and radiated the kind of confidence that came from never having worried about money. "I'm Victoria Chen, VP of Acquisitions. How long do you think you'll last?" "Excuse me?" Ethan goes through assistants like tissues, 3 in the past year alone. Victoria's smile sharpened. "But I'm sure you'll be different." She walked away before Claire could respond, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and thinly veiled hostility. "Don't mind Victoria," said a voice behind her. Claire turned to find a man in his 40s, gray at the temples, kind eyes. "She's been trying to get promoted to COO for 2 years, sees everyone as competition." "I'm just an assistant. No one is just anything around here." He held out his hand. "Peter Walsh, Chief Financial Officer, and the only person in this building who'll admit they're terrified of the boss." Claire shook it, grateful for the first friendly face she'd encountered. Claire Bennett. "I know. Everyone knows. You're the waitress who impressed Ethan enough to hire on the spot." Peter's expression turned curious. "How'd you manage that? Most of us had to go through 6 rounds of interviews and a psychological evaluation." "I brought him water without ice." Peter laughed, genuine and warm. "Sounds about right." Listen, if you need anything, and I mean anything, my office is 2 doors down. This place can be brutal if you don't know the territory. Thank you. He nodded and walked away, leaving Claire to figure out the phone system that had more buttons than seemed necessary for basic communication. Ethan emerged from his office at 10 a.m., already on his second conference call of the day. He pointed at Claire, then at his empty coffee cup, a gesture she interpreted as, "Get me more coffee immediately." She stood, then sat back down. Ethan paused mid-sentence. "Hold on." He covered the phone. "Problem?" "Where do I get coffee?" "Third floor, break room, black, no sugar." "You couldn't have mentioned that in my orientation?" "You didn't have an orientation." "Exactly my point." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. "Third floor, Claire. Before I die of caffeine withdrawal." She found the break room after getting lost twice and asking directions from a mailroom clerk who looked at her like she'd asked him to solve a calculus equation. The coffee was standard office fare, burnt and bitter, but she poured a cup and carried it back upstairs. Ethan was off the phone, staring at his computer with the intensity of a man trying to set it on fire with his mind. "Your coffee, sir." He took it without looking up. "Don't call me sir, it's weird." "What should I call you?" "Ethan, like a normal person." "You're not normal." "Fair point." He sipped the coffee, made a face. "This is terrible." "You're welcome." "I didn't thank you." "You should have." That got his attention. He looked up, eyebrow raised. "Careful, Claire. Just because I hired you doesn't mean you're immune to consequences." "What are you going to do? Fire me on day 2? "I could, but you won't." "Why not?" "Because you spent a month testing me and I passed. Firing me now would mean admitting you were wrong about me, and you don't admit you're wrong about anything." Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, short and sharp. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Someone already told me that. I'm starting to think it's your favorite phrase. It applies to a lot of people." He turned back to his computer. "I have a meeting at 11 with the Morgan Group. I need the Anderson file, the updated projections from Peter, and background on Morgan's CEO. His name is, Richard Morgan, age 57. Net worth approximately $2 billion. Currently under investigation by the SEC for insider trading, though nothing's been proven. Married 3 times, divorced twice, currently separated from wife number 3. 2 children from first marriage, both work in the family business." Claire consulted her notes. "He likes scotch, hates small talk, and once threw a water glass at an intern who brought him the wrong presentation." Ethan's hand stilled on his keyboard. "Where did you get all that?" "I spent 3 hours last night reading everything I could find about your scheduled meetings for the week. Figured if I'm going to work for you, I should at least know who I'm dealing with." "I didn't ask you to do that." "You didn't have to. It's called initiative." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Not quite approval, but close. "The Anderson file is in the cabinet behind you. 3rd drawer. Peter's projection should be in your email." And Claire. "Yes?" "Good work." The words were simple, but they hit harder than they should have. Claire turned away before he could see her smile. The Morgan meeting went smoothly, or as smoothly as anything went in Ethan's world. Claire sat in the corner of the conference room, taking notes while Ethan dismantled Richard Morgan's negotiating position with surgical precision. Morgan tried to bluster, tried to threaten, tried to charm. Nothing worked. "You're asking for 30% above market value," Ethan said flatly. "I'm offering 15% below. Meet me in the middle or I walk." "You can't walk. You need this deal." "I don't need anything. You, on the other hand, need to sell before the SEC investigation goes public and your stock price crashes. So let's stop pretending we're equals here and talk actual numbers." Morgan's face went red. "You arrogant son of a—" "Careful, Richard. We're in polite company." Ethan glanced at Claire, who was writing everything down in shorthand she'd taught herself from YouTube videos. "What do you think, Claire? Is 30% above market value reasonable?" Every head in the room turned toward her. Morgan looked confused. Ethan's own lawyers looked horrified that he was asking his assistant for input. Claire set down her pen. "I think anyone asking 30% above market value either doesn't understand basic economics or thinks you're stupid enough to pay it. And since Mr. Morgan graduated top of his class from Wharton, I'm guessing it's the second one. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Ethan smiled. Actually smiled. See, Richard? Even my assistant knows you're trying to screw me. Now let's talk real numbers before we waste any more of each other's time. Morgan left 20 minutes later, having agreed to terms much closer to Ethan's original offer. His lawyers looked shell-shocked. Ethan looked satisfied. That was risky, one of Ethan's lawyers said after they'd gone, asking your assistant for input during negotiations. Why? She was right. She's been here 3 days, and she's already smarter than half my executive team. Ethan stood, buttoning his jacket. Claire, my office. Everyone else, you're dismissed. Claire followed him back, her heart pounding. Had she overstepped, spoken out of turn, embarrassed him in front of clients? Ethan closed the door and turned to face her. Don't ever do that again. Her stomach sank. I'm sorry, I thought... Don't apologize. I'm not angry. He leaned against his desk. But don't make me look smarter than I am in front of clients. It sets unrealistic expectations. Claire blinked. You're joking. I rarely joke. That was a joke. A bad one, but still. Fine. It was a joke. He crossed his arms. You did well in there. Better than well. Where did you learn negotiation tactics? I didn't. I just said what seemed obvious. Most people can't see the obvious when money's involved. They get emotional. Start thinking with their egos instead of their brains. He studied her with those calculating eyes. You don't do that. I can't afford to. Emotions are expensive. Yes, they are. Something flickered across his face, there and gone. Take lunch. Be back by 1. We have another meeting with the Hartman account. Claire spent lunch in a small park 2 blocks from the office, eating a sandwich she'd packed that morning and watching people live their normal lives. Across the street, a mother pushed a stroller. 2 old men played chess. A teenager practiced skateboard tricks and failed spectacularly. Normal. All of it so beautifully normal. Her phone buzzed. Tommy. How's the fancy job? Exhausting, confusing, possibly a mistake. But better than the restaurant? Ask me in a week. Fair. Love you. Love you too. At 12:45, Claire headed back to the office. She was halfway across the lobby when she heard her name. Claire Bennett? She turned to find a man in his 30s, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yes? David Hendricks, I work in mergers and acquisitions. He held out his hand and Claire shook it automatically. Heard you made quite an impression in the Morgan meeting. News travels fast. Always does around here. His smile widened. Listen, I wanted to introduce myself, welcome you properly, maybe take you to lunch sometime, help you navigate the politics. Every instinct Claire had screamed warning. That's kind, but I'm still figuring things out. Of course, of course. No pressure. Just know the offer stands. He pulled out a business card. My direct line. Call any time. Claire took the card because refusing felt rude, but something about David Hendricks made her skin crawl. She watched him walk away, then looked at the card. David Hendricks, Director of Strategic Acquisitions. Hendricks. Claire's blood went cold. She took the elevator to the top floor, her mind racing, walked past her desk straight into Ethan's office without knocking. He looked up, startled. Claire, I'm on a call. Is David Hendricks related to Marcus Hendricks? Ethan's expression went completely blank. He spoke into his phone without breaking eye contact with Claire. I'll call you back. Then he hung up. Close the door. She did. Where did you hear that name? He introduced himself in the lobby, said he works in mergers and acquisitions, wanted to take me to lunch. Claire's hands were shaking. Is he related to the man who killed your sister? Ethan stood slowly. He's Marcus's younger brother. And you hired him. I didn't hire him. He was already working here when I bought out Marcus's shares. I kept him because firing him would have looked like retaliation, and I couldn't afford the lawsuit. So you just work with the brother of the man who... Yes. Ethan's voice was sharp. I work with him. I watch him. I make sure he never gets promoted above his current position, and I wait for him to make a mistake big enough to fire him without legal consequences. Claire stared at him. That's insane. That's business. It's revenge. It's both. He walked to the window, his back to her. David has been trying to get information on me for years, probably feeding it back to Marcus in prison. looking for leverage, for weakness, for anything he can use to destroy me the way I destroyed his brother. And you let him stay? Keep your enemies close, Claire. It's basic strategy. It's also incredibly stupid. What if he... Claire stopped as realization hit. That's why you hired me. Ethan turned. What? You didn't hire me because I'm good at my job. You hired me because David and whoever else is working against you won't see me coming. I'm nobody, just a waitress who got lucky. No one will suspect I'm actually watching them. That's not a... Don't lie to me. You promised no more games. Ethan's jaw tightened. It's not the only reason, but it's one of them. He didn't deny it. Couldn't. Claire felt something crack inside her chest. I should have known. This whole thing, the testing, the job offer, the trust speech, it was all just another manipulation. Claire, I need air. She left before he could stop her, took the elevator down, and walked out into the cold afternoon. Her hands were still shaking. From anger or hurt or the crushing realization that she'd been used again, she couldn't tell. Her phone rang. Ethan. She declined the call. It rang again. She declined again. On the third ring, she answered. What? Come back to the office. No. Claire, you're being irrational. I'm being smart. For the first time in weeks, I'm actually being smart. If you leave now, you're in breach of contract. Then sue me. Add me to your list of people you've destroyed. She hung up and kept walking, no destination in mind, just needing to move. The city flowed around her, indifferent to her crisis. 1 million people living their lives, and here was Claire, once again trusting the wrong person. She ended up at the hospital, sitting in Tommy's room while he slept off the after effects of treatment. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Her phone buzzed. Not Ethan this time. Peter Walsh. Don't know what happened, but Ethan's in a mood. Everyone's terrified. You okay? Claire typed back. Fine. Just needed space. Whatever you did, fix it. He's threatening to fire half the executive team. Not my problem. It is if you care about keeping your job. Claire set down her phone and looked at Tommy. He was pale, thin, hooked up to tubes and monitors. This was why she'd taken the job. Not for Ethan, not for herself. For this. But at what cost? At 7 p.m., someone knocked on the door. Claire expected a nurse. Instead, Ethan walked in, still in his suit, looking exhausted. How did you find me? I know where your brother is being treated. I know everything. Remember? He stayed by the door like crossing the threshold would be trespassing. Can we talk? I'm busy. Claire, please. The please did it again. She gestured to the chair beside her and Ethan sat, his eyes on Tommy. He looks like you, he said quietly. Everyone says that? How old is he? 17? Turns 18 next month. What's his prognosis? Better than it was, still not great. Claire kept her eyes on her brother's sleeping face. Why are you here, Ethan? Because you were right about why I hired you, partially. Partially. I hired you because I needed someone I could trust who no one would suspect, someone who could watch my back without anyone realizing they were being watched. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But I also hired you because you're good at this, because you're smart and observant and you don't fall apart under pressure. Both things are true, Claire. I'm not going to apologize for having multiple reasons. You used me. Yes, and you used me. You took this job for the money and the insurance, not because you wanted to work for me. We both got what we needed. He wasn't wrong. Claire hated that he wasn't wrong. David approached me specifically, she said. Didn't he? Probably. He's been trying to get to me through my staff for months. 3 assistants ago, he tried to bribe her for information on my schedule. She reported him. He denied it. No evidence. Ethan looked at her directly. I should have warned you. That's on me. But I needed to see how he'd approach you before interfering. Another test. Everything is a test, Claire. That's how you survive in this world. That's how you survive alone. The words hit harder than she'd intended. Ethan flinched, and looked away. They sat in silence while machines beeped and Tommy slept and the city hummed outside the window. Finally, Ethan spoke. After Sarah died, I went to the prison where they were holding Marcus before trial. Convince them to let me see him. I don't even know what I wanted. Answers, an apology, some sign of remorse. He laughed bitterly. You know what he said? He said it was an accident, that he was sorry, but accidents happen. Like my sister was a fender bender. Like her life meant nothing. Claire didn't respond, just listened. That's when I realized that most people are fundamentally selfish. They care about themselves first, everyone else second. And if you trust them, they'll use that trust to hurt you. Ethan looked at her. You're the first person in 5 years who's proven that wrong, who's told me the truth even when it costs you, and I don't know what to do with that. Try being honest back. I'm trying. It's harder than it looks. Despite everything, Claire almost smiled. Yeah, it is. Tommy stirred in his sleep, murmured something unintelligible. Claire reached over, adjusted his blanket. The gesture was automatic, born of years of practice. You're a good sister, Ethan said. I'm all he has. That's not why. You're good at it because you care, not because you have to. Same thing. No, it's not. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Come back to work on Monday. I'll brief you on David, on everyone else you need to watch. No more secrets, no more tests, just honesty. Can you do that? I can try. It's harder than it looks. This time Claire did smile. Using my own words against me? Seemed appropriate. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry. For not warning you. For putting you in that position. Apology accepted. Barely. I'll take it. He left, and Claire sat with her brother and tried to figure out if she'd just made peace or signed up for more manipulation. With Ethan, it was probably both. On Monday, Claire returned to work with her guard up and her eyes open. Ethan spent the first hour briefing her on office politics, who to trust, who to avoid, who was actively working to undermine him. Victoria wants my job. Peter is loyal but risk-averse. David is obviously compromised. Jennifer in legal is sleeping with the VP of operations and feeding him confidential information. Robert in accounting has a gambling problem and might be vulnerable to bribery. He said it all matter-of-factly, like discussing weather patterns. Welcome to corporate warfare. This is insane. This is Tuesday. Ethan handed her a file. Your real job isn't answering phones, Claire. It's watching, listening, telling me when something feels wrong. I'm not a spy. You're an observer. There's a difference. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire learned the rhythm of Calloway Industries, learned which executives smiled while sharpening knives, learned which assistants gossiped and which kept secrets, learned that Ethan wasn't paranoid, he was realistic about an office full of people who'd sell him out for the right price. She also learned that beneath the ice and the testing and the walls, Ethan was desperately, crushingly lonely. He worked 16-hour days, ate lunch at his desk, took calls at midnight from overseas clients. The only time his voice softened was when Emma called, her 6-year-old chatter breaking through his armor like sunlight through storm clouds. Daddy, Mrs. Henderson says I have to eat broccoli, but I told her you said vegetables were optional. I never said that, Emma. You implied it. That's not the same thing. It's close enough. Claire, working at her desk outside his office, heard Ethan's quiet laugh and felt something twist in her chest. He was a good father, a terrible boss, a questionable human being, but a good father. On a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks into her employment, David Hendricks stopped by her desk. Claire, how are you settling in? Fine, thank you. Listen, I wanted to apologize if I came on too strong before. Sometimes I forget how overwhelming this place can be for newcomers. His smile was practiced, perfect. Let me make it up to you. Dinner this weekend? No pressure, just a friendly welcome to the team. Every instinct screamed no, but Claire thought about what Ethan had said about watching, listening, learning. That's very kind, she said carefully. Can I think about it? Of course. My offer stands. He left, and Claire immediately walked into Ethan's office without knocking. David just asked me to dinner. Ethan looked up from his computer. And? And I think he's trying to get information. Obviously. So what do I do? What do you want to do? Claire considered. I want to see what he's after. What he's willing to say when he thinks I'm naive enough to trust him. That's dangerous. So is working here at all, apparently. Ethan studied her for a long moment. Then he opened a drawer, pulled out something small, and slid it across the desk. A recording device, no bigger than a button. Wear this. Keep it in your jacket pocket. Gives me audio of the whole conversation. You're giving me a wire? I'm giving you protection. There's a difference. Claire picked up the device, surprisingly heavy for its size. This is insane. This is corporate warfare. Welcome to the front lines. That Saturday, Claire met David at a restaurant in Tribeca. Expensive, but not ostentatious. He was already seated when she arrived, 2 glasses of wine on the table. I took the liberty, he said, gesturing to her glass. Hope you don't mind. Claire minded. She hated wine, but she smiled and sat down. Thank you. They made small talk through appetizers. David asked about her background, her experience, how she was finding Calloway Industries. Claire gave vague, pleasant answers and learned absolutely nothing useful. Then, over the main course, David leaned back and dropped his mask. Let me be honest with you, Claire. Ethan Calloway is not a good man. Oh? He's vindictive, manipulative, destroys anyone who crosses him. David swirled his wine. My brother made a terrible mistake 5 years ago, an accident that haunts him every day, and Ethan couldn't forgive that. He destroyed Marcus's life, put him in prison, ruined our entire family. Claire kept her expression neutral. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Ethan is obsessed with revenge, with control. He'll use you up and throw you away the moment you're no longer useful. David leaned forward. I'm telling you this because you seem like a good person. You don't belong in his world. And you do? I'm trying to protect what's left of my family, to gather enough evidence to prove what Ethan really is. His voice dropped lower. I could use someone on the inside. Someone who sees what really happens in that office. Someone who could help expose him before he destroys anyone else. There it was. The recruitment pitch. Claire took a sip of wine she didn't want, buying time. What exactly are you asking me to do? Just keep your eyes open. Notice things. If you see something questionable, emails, documents, conversations, let me know. I'll make it worth your while. You're asking me to spy on my boss. I'm asking you to do the right thing. Claire set down her glass. The right thing, according to you. According to basic morality. Ethan Calloway has hurt a lot of people, Claire. Don't let him hurt you too. She stood, grabbed her jacket. Thank you for dinner, David, but I'm not interested in whatever this is. Claire, wait. I work for Ethan. You work for Ethan. If you have a problem with him, take it to HR or a lawyer. Don't involve me. She walked out before he could respond, her heart hammering, made it 2 blocks before she had to stop, lean against a building, and remember how to breathe. Her phone rang. Ethan. Got all of it. Good work. I feel dirty. You should. That was a recruitment attempt for corporate espionage, probably illegal. A pause. Are you okay? No. I just had dinner with a man who wants me to betray you while pretending it's morality. Welcome to my life. It's like this all the time. Claire laughed, slightly hysterical. How are you not crazy? Who says I'm not? But his voice softened. Where are you? Corner of Franklin and West Broadway, walking home. Harrison will pick you up in 3 minutes. I can take the subway. Claire, don't argue. You just burned a bridge with David. He's going to be watching you now, which means you're officially involved in this mess. Minimum you can do is let me make sure you get home safely. The car pulled up 2 minutes later. Claire got in, too tired to fight. You did well tonight, Ethan said over the phone. Still at the office, probably. Still working. I know that wasn't easy. He really believes you're the villain in all this. Maybe I am. Maybe we both are. Perspective is complicated. He asked me to spy on you. I heard. What happens now? Now I have evidence that he's actively trying to sabotage my company. Now I can fire him without it looking like retaliation for his brother. Ethan paused. Unless you want me to keep him on. Why would I want that? Because despite everything, he's someone's brother, someone's family, and I know what that means to you. Claire closed her eyes. Ethan was impossible. Cruel and kind in equal measure, seeing too much and understanding more. Fire him, she said. But not until you have enough evidence that it's airtight. I don't want him coming back with a lawsuit. Smart. I'll wait. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for the ride, for listening, for not being completely terrible. He laughed quietly. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week. Get some rest, Claire. Monday's going to be interesting. Monday was indeed interesting. David called in sick. By Tuesday, rumors were circulating that he'd been asked to leave. By Wednesday, his desk was cleaned out and a new director was being interviewed. Claire never asked what evidence Ethan had gathered or how he'd used it. Some things were better left unknown. What she did know was this. She'd chosen a side. For better or worse, she was Ethan Calloway's ally now. And something told her the real tests were just beginning. The real tests began on a Thursday morning, 6 weeks into Claire's employment, when Ethan walked into the office looking like he hadn't slept in days. Conference room, now! Bring coffee. Claire grabbed 2 cups and followed him. Inside, Peter Walsh was already waiting, his usual calm demeanor replaced with something that looked like panic. Tell her, Ethan said without preamble. Peter cleared his throat. We've been running audits on our offshore accounts. Standard procedure happens quarterly. This time we found irregularities. What kind of irregularities? The missing kind. $3.2 million moved through shell companies over the past 18 months. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but it adds up. Claire's stomach dropped. Someone's embezzling. Someone's been embezzling, Ethan corrected, and they've been very careful about it. Same pattern Marcus used 5 years ago. Almost identical, actually. The implication hung heavy in the air. You think David set this up before he left? Claire said. I think someone set this up, and David was either part of it or a distraction while it happened. Ethan's jaw was tight. Either way, I have a company bleeding money and no idea who I can trust. What about the board? Half of them would sell me out for a good lunch. I can't bring this to them until I know exactly what happened and who's responsible. So what do you need from me? Ethan looked at her directly. I need you to help me find who did this. You see things other people miss. You notice patterns. And most importantly, no one suspects you. Except David did. David's gone. Everyone else still thinks you're just an assistant. He slid a folder across the table. These are the transactions, the accounts, everything we have. I need you to look through it with fresh eyes and tell me what doesn't fit. Claire opened the folder, her hands suddenly cold. Page after page of numbers, account codes, transfer dates. It was overwhelming, incomprehensible. I'm not an accountant, Ethan. I can barely balance my own checkbook. You don't need to be an accountant. You need to be observant. He pointed to a series of transfers. Look at the dates. What do you notice? Claire studied them. They're all Fridays. Specifically, Fridays before long weekends, when the office is half empty and people aren't paying attention. Ethan's finger moved to another column. And look at the amounts. They're all under 10,000. Exactly. Under the reporting threshold. Someone knew exactly how to avoid triggering automatic flags. Peter leaned forward. We've narrowed it down to 12 people with access to these accounts. All executives, all with clearance. But we can't prove which one without more evidence. So we watch them, Claire said. All of them. See who makes a mistake. That could take months, Peter protested. We don't have months, Ethan snapped. The quarterly board meeting is in 3 weeks. If I go in there without answers, they'll question my leadership. Some of them are already looking for excuses to force me out. Claire studied the numbers again, something nagging at the back of her mind. Can I see the personnel files? For all 12 suspects? Ethan nodded to Peter, who left and returned 5 minutes later with a stack of folders. Claire spread them across the conference table, looking at faces, reading backgrounds, searching for the pattern she felt but couldn't name. Then she saw it. Jennifer Marks, Legal Department, hired 3 years ago from Hendricks and Associates. So, Marcus Hendricks owned Hendricks and Associates before he went to prison. It was his family's law firm. Claire pulled out Jennifer's file. She worked there for 6 years before coming here. She would have known Marcus personally. Ethan and Peter exchanged looks. That's circumstantial, Peter said. Lots of lawyers worked at that firm. But how many of them have access to offshore accounts? Claire pointed to the transaction dates. And look at this. The first transfer happened 3 years ago, 1 month after Jennifer was hired. Ethan grabbed the file, reading quickly. His expression darkened with each page. Why wasn't this flagged during her background check? Because she was never directly connected to Marcus's embezzlement. She was just a junior associate at his firm. No criminal record, excellent references. Peter rubbed his face. We had no reason to suspect her. We do now. Ethan pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. I want her office sealed and her access revoked immediately. Wait, Claire said. If you do that, you tip her off. She'll know we're on to her, and if she has any evidence stored somewhere else, she'll destroy it. What do you suggest? Claire thought fast. Let me talk to her, woman to woman. I'll say I need legal advice on my contract, something personal. Get her comfortable. See if she slips up. Absolutely not. Why not? Because if she's responsible for this, she's also desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. So are desperate billionaires, but I work with you every day. Despite everything, Ethan almost smiled. This isn't a joke, Claire. I know it's not, but you said yourself no one suspects me. Let me use that. Peter looked between them. She has a point. Jennifer won't see her as a threat. No, Ethan said flatly. You hired me to watch people. Let me do my job. Your job is not to put yourself in danger. Everything about working here is dangerous. This is just more specific. They stared at each other across the conference table, wills clashing. Finally, Ethan broke. Fine, but you wear a wire, and security monitors everything in real time. At the first sign of trouble, we pull you out. Deal. An hour later, Claire knocked on Jennifer Marks's office door, the recording device hidden in her blazer button. Jennifer looked up from her computer, surprised. Claire, hi. What can I do for you? I'm sorry to bother you. I had some questions about my employment contract, and I didn't want to bother Ethan with legal stuff. Jennifer's smile was warm, professional. Of course. Come in, sit down. What's concerning you? Claire sat, arranging her expression into something worried. It's probably nothing, but there's a clause about non-disclosure that I don't fully understand. It says I can't discuss confidential company information, but it doesn't define what counts as confidential. That's standard language. Basically, anything you learn in the course of your work that isn't public knowledge. Right, but what if someone asked me questions? Like, hypothetically, if a reporter wanted to know about Ethan's schedule or his meetings, would telling them be a violation? Something flickered across Jennifer's face. Has someone approached you? No, I'm just trying to understand my obligations. Your obligation is to the company first, always. Jennifer's voice was calm, but her hands had tightened on her pen. Has Ethan asked you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable? Like what? I don't know. Handle sensitive documents, move money between accounts, anything that seems unusual. There it was, the fishing expedition. No, nothing like that. I mostly just manage his calendar and take calls. Claire paused. Why do you ask? No reason. Just making sure you're not being put in a difficult position. Jennifer relaxed fractionally. Ethan can be demanding. If he ever asks you to do something questionable, you can come to me. I'm here to protect employees' rights. That's good to know. Thank you. Claire stood to leave, but Jennifer's voice stopped her. Claire, can I ask you something? Off the record? Sure. Why did Ethan really hire you? You don't have executive assistant experience. You came from food service. It doesn't make sense. Every nerve in Claire's body screamed danger, but she kept her voice light. I think he liked that I wasn't intimidated by him. Or maybe he liked that you don't have connections in the corporate world, that you're isolated, easier to control. I'm not sure what you mean. Jennifer leaned back in her chair. Ethan Calloway is not a good man, Claire. I know he seems charming, seems fair, but he's destroyed a lot of lives, including some very good people who trusted him. Like Marcus Hendricks? The words were out before Claire could stop them. Jennifer's expression froze. You know about Marcus? Everyone knows about Marcus. The man killed Ethan's sister. It was an accident, a terrible, tragic accident. Jennifer's voice had gone hard. Marcus spent years rebuilding his life after that, and Ethan couldn't let it go. He fabricated evidence, set him up, destroyed everything Marcus had built. Fabricated evidence? Marcus was convicted of embezzlement because Ethan planted it, made it look like Marcus had been stealing when really it was just poor accounting practices. Marcus is rotting in prison for a crime he didn't commit, and Ethan sleeps just fine at night. Claire's heart was pounding. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. And if you're smart, you'll get out of here before Ethan does the same thing to you. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to see another person destroyed by him. Jennifer stood, came around the desk. Claire, I can help you. I have connections, resources. If you want out of your contract, I can make it happen. In exchange for what? Just information, harmless stuff, emails, schedules, who Ethan's meeting with. Nothing that would hurt anyone. There it was, the recruitment pitch, just like David's. But this time, Claire understood what she was hearing. Jennifer wasn't trying to expose Ethan. She was trying to protect herself. I need to think about it, Claire said carefully. Don't think too long. Ethan has a way of making people disappear when they become inconvenient. Claire left the office on shaking legs, made it to the elevator before her knees gave out. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, got all of it. Security is moving now. 5 minutes later, security escorted Jennifer Marks from the building. She didn't fight, didn't protest, just walked out with her head high and her mouth shut, a lawyer to the end. In Ethan's office, Claire collapsed into a chair while he played back the recording. She really believes Marcus was innocent, Claire said. Of course she does. He probably fed her that story years ago, made himself the victim. Ethan's voice was bitter. That's what people like Marcus do. They lie until even they believe it. What happens now? Now we have evidence that Jennifer was working with Marcus to embezzle funds. The recordings, combined with the financial forensics, should be enough for criminal charges. He looked at Claire. You did well. Better than well. I feel sick. You should. What you just did was dangerous. You told me no one suspects me. I was wrong. Jennifer suspected you the moment you walked into her office. She just underestimated you. He poured her a glass of water from the pitcher on his desk. Drink this. Claire drank, her hands still trembling. She really thinks you're the villain. Maybe I am. I did destroy Marcus. I did use every resource I had to make sure he paid for what he did. He killed your sister. And then he stole from me for years while pretending to be my partner, while standing at Sarah's funeral and offering his condolences. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. So yes, I destroyed him, and I'd do it again. They sat in silence while the reality of what had just happened settled around them. Claire had helped catch a criminal, had worn a wire and lied and played a part, had become exactly what Ethan needed her to be. I need to tell you something, Ethan said finally. What? There's more. About Sarah. About what really happened. Claire waited. The accident wasn't random. Marcus wasn't just drunk. He was angry. We'd had a fight that day about the embezzlement I'd discovered. I confronted him, told him I was going to the police. He said I was overreacting, that it was just accounting errors. Ethan's hands were shaking now. Sarah called me that night, said Marcus had shown up at her apartment, drunk, demanding to talk to me. She told him to leave, and he did. But he waited outside. And when she got in her car to come warn me, he followed her. Claire's breath caught. You think he hit her on purpose? I think he was following her and didn't care if he hit her or not. I think his rage mattered more than her life. Ethan looked at Claire and his eyes were wet. I couldn't prove it. No witnesses, no evidence. Just my word against his, and mine didn't matter because I was biased. So he got 6 months for drunk driving while my sister stayed in a coma. Coma? I thought, is he? She's not dead. The words came out strangled. She's been in a persistent vegetative state for 5 years, in a private facility upstate. The doctors say there's no brain activity, no chance of recovery. But I can't let her go. Claire felt tears running down her face. Where is she? Meadowbrook Medical Center, 2 hours north of here. He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. Sarah in a hospital bed, eyes closed, breathing tube in her throat, alive, but not living. I visit every weekend, talk to her, tell her about Emma, about work, about everything she's missing. She never responds, never will. I'm so sorry. Emma doesn't know. She thinks Sarah died in the accident. It's easier than explaining that her aunt is trapped in a body that won't let her go. Ethan wiped his eyes roughly. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth. About me. About why I am the way I am. About what working for me really means. It means standing next to someone who's in pain and trying to pretend he's not. Something like that. Claire stood, walked around the desk, and did something she'd never done before. She hugged Ethan Calloway. He froze for a second, then his arms came around her, holding on like a drowning man to driftwood. They stood like that for a long moment, two broken people finding comfort in shared understanding. When they pulled apart, Ethan's mask was back in place, but softer now, more human. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not running. Most people would have." "I'm not most people." "No, you're really not." That weekend, Claire did something she'd been thinking about for weeks. She asked Ethan if she could visit Sarah. He looked surprised. "Why?" "Because she was important to you, and I want to understand." The drive upstate was quiet. Ethan's hands were tight on the steering wheel, his jaw set. They passed through small towns and farmland, the city falling away behind them. Meadowbrook was nicer than Claire expected. More like a resort than a hospital, with gardens and private rooms and staff who spoke in soft voices. Ethan signed in at the front desk, and they walked down a long hallway to room 217. Sarah looked peaceful, like she was sleeping. Machines beeped softly, tracking a life that existed only in heartbeats and breath. "Hi, Sarah," Ethan said, pulling up a chair. "I brought someone to meet you. This is Claire. She's been helping me at work, keeping me from being a complete bastard, mostly." Claire stood awkwardly by the door, feeling like an intruder. "Sit," Ethan said, gesturing to another chair. "She won't bite." Claire sat, looking at Sarah's peaceful face. She was beautiful, even like this, even trapped. "I caught the person who was stealing from the company," Ethan continued, talking to his sister like she could hear. "Jennifer Marks. Worked with Marcus to embezzle millions. Claire figured it out. You would have liked her. She's stubborn as hell and doesn't take my crap." Claire felt tears burning again. This was how he coped. By pretending Sarah could still hear, still care, still be part of his life. "Emma's doing well in school. Teacher says she's reading above grade level. Smart like you were." His voice cracked. "She asks about you sometimes. I don't know what to tell her." They sat like that for an hour, Ethan talking, Claire listening, Sarah silent. When they finally left, Ethan looked exhausted. "Thank you for coming," he said in the parking lot. "Thank you for bringing me. I've never brought anyone here before, not even Emma." "Why me?" "Because you understand. About family, about sacrifice, about loving someone enough to keep fighting even when it's hopeless." He looked at her. "Your brother's lucky to have you. Sarah's lucky to have you. She's not lucky. She's trapped in a nightmare she can't wake up from because I'm too selfish to let her go." "That's not selfishness. That's love." Sometimes they're the same thing. They drove back to the city in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. When Ethan dropped Claire off at her apartment, he didn't drive away immediately. "Claire?" She turned back. "I'm going to need your help with something. Something big." "What?" "I'm going after Marcus, for real this time. I have new evidence about the accident, about his embezzlement, about everything. I'm going to make sure he never gets out of prison." His eyes were hard. "But it's going to be ugly, dangerous, and I need someone I can trust absolutely." Claire thought about Tommy, about the job that paid for his treatment, about the man in front of her who'd shown her more truth in 3 months than most people showed in years. "I'm in," she said. "Whatever you need. You don't even know what I'm asking." "I know you. That's enough." Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Gratitude, maybe. Or relief. Or something deeper that neither of them was ready to name. "Monday," he said. "We start Monday." Monday came with a team of lawyers and investigators crowding into Ethan's conference room. Peter was there, looking nervous. Claire took notes while Ethan laid out the plan. Marcus Hendricks is currently serving 15 years for embezzlement, but the drunk driving charge that killed Sarah got him 6 months probation. That was a miscarriage of justice, and I'm going to correct it. One of the lawyers cleared her throat. "Mr. Calloway, with respect, that case is closed. Double jeopardy prevents." "I'm not retrying the drunk driving charge. I'm filing a wrongful death lawsuit. Civil court, lower burden of proof. And I have new evidence." He nodded to an investigator who pulled up security footage on the screen. "This is from a traffic camera 2 blocks from Sarah's apartment. Timestamp shows 11:47 p.m., same night as the accident. The footage showed Marcus's car, clearly visible, pulling out behind Sarah's, following her. He waited for her, Claire said softly. He stalked her, and when she drove away, he followed with the intent to intimidate or harm. That's not drunk driving, that's vehicular assault, potentially manslaughter. The room erupted in discussion, lawyers arguing about precedent and procedure, investigators pointing out gaps in the evidence. Claire watched Ethan's face, saw the determination there, and knew he'd win. Because Ethan Calloway didn't lose. The lawsuit took 3 months to prepare. 3 months of depositions and evidence gathering and legal maneuvering. Marcus's lawyers fought every step, but the traffic camera footage was damning. Combined with testimony from witnesses who'd seen Marcus at Sarah's apartment, drunk and angry, the case was strong. During those 3 months, Claire learned more about Ethan than she'd learned in the entire time before. Learned that he called Emma every night at 8 p.m. without fail. Learned that he donated anonymously to hospitals and medical research. Learned that underneath the ice and the cruelty was a man trying desperately to make sense of a world that had taken everything he loved. She also learned that he was lonely in ways money couldn't fix. One late night, working in the office on case preparation, Ethan looked up from his papers. "Why are you still here?" "Same reason you are. Work that needs doing. You could go home, get sleep, live your life. So could you. I don't have a life outside this. Maybe you should." He laughed bitterly. "Doing what? Dating? Making friends? I don't trust anyone enough for that. You trust me. You're different." "How? You've never asked me for anything, never wanted anything from me except honesty." He set down his pen. "Do you know how rare that is?" "Maybe you're just looking in the wrong places." "Maybe I am." The moment stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. Then Ethan's phone rang, breaking the spell. Emma's nanny, calling about a school project emergency. The trial, when it finally came, lasted 2 weeks. Claire sat in the gallery every day, watching Ethan systematically dismantle Marcus Hendricks's defense. The traffic camera footage, witness testimony, expert analysis showing Marcus had been following Sarah deliberately. Marcus himself took the stand, older now, grayer, but still defiant. "It was an accident," he insisted. "I was drunk. I made a terrible mistake, but I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "You were at my sister's apartment that night," Ethan said from the plaintiff's table. "Drunk and angry. Why?" "I wanted to talk to you, to explain about the accounting issues." "You mean the embezzlement?" "It wasn't embezzlement. It was mismanagement." "That's not what the jury said when they convicted you." Marcus's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The jury saw Marcus for what he was, a liar, a thief, and a killer. The verdict came back in Ethan's favor. $50 million in damages. Not that Ethan needed the money. He donated every penny to medical research for coma patients. What he needed was justice. And finally, 5 years later, he had it. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ethan gave a brief statement about hoping this brought closure to other families who'd lost loved ones to drunk driving. Then he found Claire in the crowd. "We won," he said quietly. "You won." "No, we won. I couldn't have done this without you." They stood in the cold February air, surrounded by strangers, and Claire felt something shift. This job had been about money, about Tommy, about survival. But somewhere along the way, it had become about something else. It had become about standing next to someone who needed her as much as she needed him. That evening, Ethan took Claire and Emma to dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, just good food and warm lighting. Emma chattered about her school play while Ethan actually smiled, the ice completely melted. "Claire, are you going to be my dad's friend forever?" Emma asked suddenly. "Emma, that's not—" Ethan started. "I don't know, sweetheart." "Why do you ask?" "Because Daddy's less grumpy when you're around. Mrs. Henderson says he used to be grumpy all the time, but now he's only grumpy sometimes." Claire laughed. "Well, I'll try to stick around then. Keep the grumpiness to a minimum." "Good." Emma went back to her pasta, satisfied. Ethan caught Claire's eye across the table, and something passed between them. Understanding, gratitude, maybe something more. After dinner, after Emma was dropped off with Mrs. Henderson, Ethan drove Claire home. They sat in the car outside her building, neither wanting to leave. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Ethan said finally. The case, the company, keeping Emma from thinking I'm a complete monster. You changed everything, Claire. You changed everything for me too. Tommy's treatment is working. The doctors say he's in remission. That's incredible. It's because of you. Because you gave me a chance when you didn't have to. I gave you a chance because you earned it, because you're stronger than you know. They looked at each other, and Claire felt the weight of 6 months of working together, fighting together, learning to trust when trust felt impossible. Ethan, I know, I feel it too. This is complicated. Everything is complicated. I work for you. Technically, you work for my company. There's a difference. Claire laughed despite herself. That's the worst logic I've ever heard. Probably, but it's all I've got. He leaned forward, and Claire met him halfway. The kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like the cold businessman or the wounded man, just two people finding comfort in each other. When they pulled apart, Ethan was smiling, actually smiling. I should go, Claire said. Yeah, you should. But I don't want to. Good, because I don't want you to either. She kissed him again, longer this time, then forced herself to pull away. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Claire. She walked into her building, feeling lighter than she had in years. Inside, Tommy was waiting up, grinning. You're glowing. What happened? I kissed my boss. The scary billionaire? He's not that scary. Not anymore. Tommy hugged her. You deserve this, Claire. After everything you've done for me, you deserve to be happy. We both do. 6 months later, Claire stood in Ethan's office looking at a contract. Not an employment contract this time. A partnership agreement. You want me to be COO. I want you to run half this company with me. You've earned it. Ethan leaned against his desk. You see things I miss. You understand people in ways I never will. And you're the only person I trust to help me build something that isn't just about revenge and control. What is it about then? Building something Sarah would have been proud of. Something Emma can inherit without shame. Something that actually means something. He took Claire's hand. I can't do that alone. Claire looked at the contract, at the numbers that would make her wealthy beyond anything she'd imagined. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the man standing in front of her, offering not just money, but partnership, trust, a future. I have one condition, she said. Name it. We visit Sarah together every weekend, and we tell Emma the truth, about her aunt, about what happened, about all of it. No more secrets. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's going to be hard. Everything worth doing is hard. You taught me that. Did I? You did. Usually while being insufferable about it. He laughed, pulled her close. Deal. Full partnership, full honesty, full everything. Claire signed the contract, and as she did, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a struggling waitress to the COO of a billion-dollar company. From fearing a cold billionaire to loving the broken man underneath. From surviving to actually living. The universe didn't reward good people just for being good. Life was unfair and brutal and often meaningless. But sometimes, if you were stubborn enough and brave enough and refused to break no matter how hard the world pushed, you found something worth fighting for. You found someone who saw your strength and didn't try to diminish it. Someone who trusted you with their worst parts and helped you heal your own. Someone who proved that the people strongest in life were often the ones who'd suffered the longest. That weekend, Claire and Ethan drove upstate to Meadowbrook with Emma in the back seat, asking questions about the aunt she'd never really known. Ethan answered honestly, his voice steady, even as tears ran down his face. In room 217, Emma held Sarah's hand and told her about school, about her life, about the family that still loved her even in silence. Claire watched Ethan watching his daughter and saw hope in his eyes for the first time. Not hope that Sarah would wake up, that was impossible, but hope that healing was possible, that moving forward didn't mean leaving behind, that love could exist even in grief. Later, in the parking lot, Emma asleep in the car, Ethan pulled Claire close. Thank you, he whispered, for everything, for not giving up on me when you should have. Thank you for giving me a reason not to. They drove home as the sun set over the Hudson. 3 people who'd all lost something finding their way toward something new. Not perfect, never perfect, but real, and honest, and worth the fight. Because in the end, that's all anyone could ask for. Not a life without pain, but a life where the pain meant something, where the struggle led somewhere, where the people who suffered in silence finally found someone brave enough to stand beside them and say, "I see you. I understand. You're not alone anymore." Claire Bennett had learned that lesson serving overpriced fish to cruel billionaires. Ethan Calloway had learned it destroying the man who'd destroyed his family. And together, they were learning what came after the survival, after the revenge, after the tests. They were learning how to actually live. And that, Claire thought, as Manhattan's lights appeared on the horizon, was the real beginning. Not the job, not the money, not even the justice. Just two broken people choosing to trust each other with the pieces and building something new from what remained. It wasn't the ending either of them had expected, but it was the one they'd earned, and that made all the difference.